Hi, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Snowden.
And I'm the other host, Andy, and welcome to the Tea and Timbits podcast.
Global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. I got that wrong in one of our last episodes. Did you notice?
It sounds so inspirational. I'm sure everybody
is
paying full attention.
We're still practicing. It's all good. We are going to talk about process today. But I guess the one thing that we want to get people to think about is when process is important and how to apply it. So sort of put that in your mind as we go through our conversation today.
Okay, thanks very much, Scott. Just a quick one though, before we get into that topic, we've got in the habit of asking each other if we have any lessons from this week, and I've jumped on this now. So, Scott, do you have any lessons from this last week?
I do. I was and it's helpful now that we do this podcast because it helps you sort of think about these things as the week goes along and reflecting on your own sort of moments. I was doing some business mentoring, and I was in a conversation with an entrepreneur, a startup business. And this was a business that is producing hardware, so physical electronic equipment. And they were talking about their business and trying to get some advice from me. And I was asking them about the possibility of enhancing their business model to include a subscription service. And don't just sell the hardware, but how can you add some recurring revenue and or value-added services? And they said, yeah, that's, you're not the first one to give us that suggestion. It's been in the back of our mind and we want to do it and we've talked about it, but we're not quite sure when we're going to get to it. And I said, well, you've got to have a roadmap. If that is something and you're hearing it from others, not just me. And this was also they had some venture capital, right? So they've got investors and they have some backing and they're going for other rounds of funding as well. I said, but that's kind of beside the point. I said, you need to have a roadmap. You need to put that out there, even for yourselves, because it's going to guide your thinking. And it's going to make sure that there's a certain amount of urgency to the moment that you're in right now, knowing that if you don't get through what you're doing now, you're never going to get to where you want to be tomorrow. So you don't have to be too specific about when you're going to get there. I think you should have a rough idea. I think you should be able to say that like 12 months from now, we want to be introducing our subscription model. Nobody's going to fault you for that slipping out to 14 weeks or accelerating to, 14 months or accelerating to 8 months. But in the absence of that, you just get too stuck in the here and now, and it does not project sort of confidence and vision for your business. So I thought I would share that because I think that thinking about having a roadmap is a beneficial concept for a lot of the people that at least, I interact with on a weekly basis, and probably applies to the people that might be tuning in to listen to us as well.
No, I think you're right. I think, it's so important to have that plan, and it's so important to have that vision as well, and that you share that throughout your organization so that everybody can jump on board and feel part of that, that long-term goal, and understand what they're doing each day contributes to something, that's part of a big picture and a big company goal. It's very interesting.
Anyway, so that's what I thought I'd share. So let's get on to our topic. We said we were going to talk about process today. I think before we go too far with this concept, we need to clarify for our international audience that when we're talking about process, we're also talking about process. I get criticized for my pronunciation of the word process all the time with my American friends and colleagues. How do you pronounce it?
It's a process.
Yeah, it is, right? Okay. All right. We're on the same page. There's nothing else to debate there. Moving on to our discussion about the benefits of process. Andy, do you have any sort of thoughts to kick us off here?
Well, I'm actually a big fan of having processes in place. I work a lot with companies to develop into new markets or into new business areas, and very often the reason that they haven't done it themselves is that they lack a clear strategy. Well, in a way, actually, a roadmap, like where we started this discussion. But But part of that, then, once you've got that roadmap in place, you need to have some processes in place as well in order to take that forward and make that work and make it implementable and make it something that people can actually engage with, make part of their day-to-day activities. Because if you don't have processes in your business, if you don't have processes for everything that you're doing, you don't know whether or not you're doing it correctly. You don't know whether or not you've allocated enough time for it. You don't know if you're working towards a specific goal in the right way. You don't know if anything that you're doing is actually structured in the right way.
I sort of have a love-hate relationship with process. I value it tremendously. And especially from a quote unquote business development perspective, I did not have a process until a few years ago. And now we have one, and it's got a name and it's got a diagram and it's got steps. And that's one example of several processes that we have in place in my business. But sometimes I think you can lose the forest for the trees. You are too rigid in following this set of instructions and this set of rules that you forget to think of it often as a framework, as sort of guiding principles, and not necessarily as a specific stepwise order that you have to do things in. I think the downside of process is that some people can defer to it in the wrong situations. Well, I was just following the process, I'm like, come on. Yeah, but you forgot to use your brain. I mean, I thought that was kind of like the dotted line that goes around the whole thing. I don't know. Have you seen it fall down or can you?
Yes,
do you know what I'm talking about?
You're completely right. It can be used as a weapon as well by certain people, certain organizations to justify laziness, to justify avoiding things. I think common sense needs to prevail over all of this. You need to look at the situation and you need to understand what is actually going on and what is it that you're dealing with, and also understand that the process is there to guide you. And it's not there to tie you up in a certain direction in a certain way. So it is very important to have that flexibility. But some people even need a process for having flexibility. So the process
well, you're absolutely right. And I was in a similar situation talking to another, in one of these other mentoring sessions that I was doing, and they were following they were asked to do this exercise, this business planning exercise, and they were following the template to a T. And I we're going through it, and I'm giving them some feedback, and I stopped and I interrupted. I said, hold on a second, zoom out. Like, why are you doing this? You're putting there's a lot of uncertainty and lack of clarity, and you almost feel uncomfortable. You were really in this section. You were really comfortable a few moments ago when we were reviewing another section of this exercise, but right here, right now, you seem like you're grasping for answers, and you're kind of trying to come up with something to fill in this section of the template. I said, why? And they're like, oh, well, because I thought we were supposed to do this. I'm like, this is for you. This is your business that you're building. Right. Yeah. So, make sure that you think about the applicability of the process. I think that, oftentimes it gives you all the structure that you need. It helps new people get onboarded. It helps you think about how your business runs when you put a process together. But as I've been saying, follow it where it's beneficial.
Yeah. I think an important part of this as well, though, I mean, if we talk about a sales process or a business development process that people have in their businesses, very often they'll be a little bit too high level, and they'll be just a very high level framework. And one part of that will say, let's, for example, contact some customers or generate leads. Right? So it's very generic. Right. And that's okay. It's okay to have this overarching framework, but that then needs a process underneath it. So, when it comes to new business generation, you need to have a process around it. You need to block time in your calendar. You need to allocate resources. You need to allocate time. You need to allocate time for the research that's necessary in order to do it. And very important to remember, researching isn't prospecting. A lot of people fall into that trap and spend forever in the research,
and then they wonder why they don't have any prospects.
That's right. But it needs to be dedicated time in your week to do the new business generation and the prospecting, however that is specifically for your business, and there needs to be a process around making that happen.
Absolutely, yeah, I completely agree. I think what I've also seen is that oftentimes you have a new tool or you pick a tool, and I'm going right to CRM here. And that might be something that supports your sales team, or it might be something that actually supports your business operations team. But it comes with a template and I'm going and I'm sort of repeating my argument here, but it comes with a template that says, well, your sales process should go from questioning to formalizing to recommending to, and it's built in when you turn on the software. Oh, well, I guess I need to adjust and but if you don't adapt it to the way that your business runs, you're never going to use the tool. And the tool is not the process. The tool is not the solution. The number of times that you pick the tool and then you start using it and try to change to the way that the tool works leads to disaster.
Yeah,
leads to abandoned implementations and abandoned tools and another subscription that you thought you would find valuable that quickly crumbled.
So what we're saying is the process is important.
Yes.
The process needs to work for your business and for your specific needs. And it needs to be clear enough that there is a guiding principle that everyone and anyone can follow, whether they're new into the company or new into the role or they're already there. But it needs to be flexible enough that it allows deviations for whatever purpose based on business circumstances.
I'm going to add, and I know we were kind of trying to summarize what we've been saying, but I'm going to add one more thing here. It has to be documented.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah, no, very, very, very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
It needs to be articulated. We have lots of processes that then have other templates that go along with each step of the process, but they started with just the process and a diagram and a formalization of what the steps are that you're going through. And then it got a little bit more clear, and then it got a little bit more helpful, and then it got a little bit, more defined. And a process without documentation is nothing. It's not a process.
Completely agree. Yeah. Just
an
idea.
Awesome. Well, listen, for those listening who sort of are keyed into this, we want you to reflect on whether or not you've got the right processes, that they're appropriate for the business, and that you're using them in the right context in the right way.
Completely right. And Excellent. If you want to get in touch with us at Tea and Timbits podcast, then just visit teaandtimbits.com and you'll find many ways to get in touch and to subscribe to listen to us on a regular basis.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And thanks for listening.
Thanks very much. Bye.